In the aftermath of 9/11, the US government concluded that the law had not kept pace with technology. It created the Terrorist Surveillance Program, initially to intercept communications linked to Al-Qaeda. Officials were confident that if the program had been in place before 9/11, the hijackers could have been stopped. But soon the new powers were also used to prove guilt by association. The FBI used immigration records to identify Arab and Muslim foreign nationals in the US. On this basis, 80,000 individuals were required to register, another 8,000 were called in for FBI interviews, and more than 5,000 locked up in preventive detention. Not one terrorist was found in what's been called the most aggressive national campaign of ethnic profiling since World War II. How commonplace it's since become for government agencies to collect and store the personal data of citizens was made plain by the leak of the Snowden documents in 2013. They showed how the NSA can demand information about users from firms like Microsoft or Google, in addition to their daily collection of data from civilian internet traffic such as email content and contact lists. So instead of focusing on criminals, governments are increasingly turning their attention to everyone. But if you're looking for a needle in a haystack, adding more hay to the stack isn't going to make it any easier to find the needle. On the contrary, every recent success announced by the NSA has come from classic target surveillance. Despite high hopes, the NSA surveillance program has not stopped any major terror attack. For instance, one of the Boston Marathon bombers was already a target of the FBI. So what we need is not even more random data, but better ways to understand and use the information we have. Spy agencies are also pushing to cripple encryption. In early 2016, the FBI asked Apple to produce a backdoor program to disable the encryption of a terrorist's iPhone. Apple publicly declined, not only because this tool could be used to permanently weaken the privacy of law-abiding citizens worldwide, but fearing to open the floodgates for governments requesting access to a technology used by billions of people, a fear shared by security experts and cryptographers. A few weeks later, the FBI revealed that they had hacked the phone themselves, basically admitting that they lied to the public about the need for a backdoor. Which questions how trustworthy spy agencies are in the debate about privacy and security, especially considering that the NSA, for example, already has the capability to turn on your iPhone microphone or activate your laptop camera without you noticing. Concerns about this are often met with the argument, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. But this reasoning only creates a climate of oppression. Wanting to keep certain parts of your life private doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Right now, we live in a democracy. But imagine the damage the wrong person could do with all our data and such easy access to our devices. Anti-terrorism laws allow the authorities to investigate and punish non-terrorism-related crimes more aggressively. If you give law enforcement powerful tools, they will use them. That's why democratic oversight is so important. Even if those tools and laws aren't used against you today, they might be tomorrow. For example, following the November 2015 Paris attacks, France expanded its already extensive anti-terrorism laws by giving law enforcement greater powers to conduct house raids and place people under house arrest. Within weeks, evidence emerged that these powers were being used for unintended purposes such as quashing climate change protests. The governments of Spain, Hungary and Poland have introduced more restrictive laws on the freedom of assembly and speech. Freedom of expression and the press in Turkey has been seriously undermined in the last few years, with people sentenced to prison for criticizing the government. None of this is effectively helping us fight terrorism. The motivation behind this might be good, even noble, but if we let our elected governments limit our personal freedom, the terrorists are winning. What's worse, if we're not careful, we might slowly move towards a surveillance state.
Information today is a convenient means. It's a mechanism for attaining a certain power. And that power today is control. Surveillance technologies have outpaced democratic controls. A generation ago, surveillance was extremely expensive. There was a natural limitation imposed upon it. That is, the governments had to spend huge, extraordinary sums to track lone, isolated individuals. To know a particular person's location might involve many teams of officers, both in buildings and out on the streets, working in shifts. But today that dynamic is reversed. One guy sitting in front of a monitor can track with precision an unimaginably large number of people. For the first time in human history, it's both technologically and financially feasible for governments to track and store nearly complete records of our private lives. Now, this is not science fiction. This is happening now. When we look at the construction of facilities such as this, the NSA's data center in Bluffdale, this was called by them the MDR, the Massive Data Repository. They called it that for a reason. This was not the targeted data repository. This was not something that was designed just to watch this person or that person. It's because they were ingesting everything, everywhere, and saving it in case it might be of interest later, in case something came up. Someone who previously there was no justification to watch, someone who had committed no crime, someone who was an ordinary person would have their life captured, crystallized, compressed, and stored perfectly, timelessly for 5 years or more, just in case they wanted to look at them. And this is what's happening today. Even in developed democracies, places that should know better, in the past few months, the United Kingdom passed the most extreme surveillance bill in the history of Western democracy, called the Investigatory Powers Bill. It takes everything the NSA was doing, institutionalizes it, and expands it to a level of intrusive detail that truly is beyond what we have seen the worst police states in history have within their authorities to go after. This is a law so authoritarian and so abusive that experts say it goes farther than laws like China and Russia, which I think we can all agree are no friend to civil liberties. In Russia last year, they passed what they called an anti-terrorism package, the Yurovaya Paket. Russians call it the Big Brother law. And if Russians are calling a surveillance law the Big Brother law, you know there's a problem. China is passing new intrusive surveillance bills that are modeled after the US's own bills very carefully so that the US cannot criticize them for using the same powers to abuse their citizens' rights. We are witnessing the construction of a world in which the most common political value is fear. But the real answer is these programs were never about terrorism. They do have value. Mass surveillance has value, just not for saving lives. It is valuable for traditional espionage, diplomatic manipulation, economic espionage, and social influence, right? Controlling the narrative, shaping the way the world thinks about issues and understanding what everybody's thinking, who is connected to who. These programs are about power.
Earlier this month, Singapore launched its Trace Together app. It gives off short-distance Bluetooth signals between smartphones of users in close proximity. If a user is diagnosed with COVID-19, health authorities can gain access to the app data to identify the people the user has had close contact with. Extremely useful information, but it raises concerns about privacy issues in government surveillance. Singapore's not the only country to adopt digital contact tracing methods. China goes even further, assigning citizens a colour-coded level based on their health condition and travel history, which determines whether they're allowed into malls or public transport, for examples. South Korea's sharing previous movements of COVID-19 patients, which has led to residents being outed for non-COVID-19 related reasons and public shaming. Israel has an app that warns users if they've crossed paths with an infected patient, and Taiwan has introduced a digital fence using smartphone data to enforce quarantines.
All of China is under alert. Here, just outside the capital, drivers must go through checkpoints. Fences are going up around certain neighborhoods. Like something out of science fiction, this drone equipped with a megaphone hovers before a crowd, blaring a warning.
Veuillez respecter une distance de sécurité d'au moins 1 mètre entre chaque personne. Tous les déplacements hors du domicile sont interdits sauf dérogation.
Kindly stay home, avoid gathering, and stay away from everything that puts you and your family at risk. It's our wishes to everyone to be safe.
They're the eyes and voices in the sky.
Social distancing is critical.
Like something out of a science fiction movie, but this is our new reality.
In the small town of Westport, Connecticut, a drone is scanning for COVID-19 symptoms. And the reaction here is, well, mixed.
COVID-19, this park is currently closed.
What we're doing here at this department is trying to leverage the technology that's out there and make it fit into this mold that is COVID-19. Let's say if you have 103 fever, that'll come in handy with letting us know from at a glance, are you somebody who possibly has the virus?
But these new drones are equipped not only with cameras, but high-tech sensors that can help determine if people are sick. We've already seen police use helmets in China to detect fevers. Similar technology, but up in the air. This technology involves real-time health information.
After the judge issues the order, the sheriff's department delivers it, and then Metro Corrections officers go inside the house and put an ankle monitor on that patient. This is the gear they've been given to wear while inside the home.
What will our lives look like? Can fans gather at sporting events, theaters? What about busy workplaces? Some, including New York City's mayor, say part of the new normal should involve health screenings.
The important thing to recognize with the temperature checks, they absolutely have a role to play.
This device may play a role in getting the country going again. It's called the Symptom Sense Medical Evaluation Gateway. The manufacturer says it can screen up to 600 people an hour for signs of illness.
And now Mayor de Blasio is asking New Yorkers who see anyone violating the social distancing order to report them.
When you see a crowd, when you see a line that's not distanced, when you see a supermarket that's too crowded, anything, you can report it right away so we can get help there to fix the problem. And now it's as simple as taking a photo. All you gotta do is take the photo and put the location with it, and bang, send a photo like this, and we will make sure that enforcement comes right away.
What does opening up look like? Which activities, like schools, have such benefit and can be done in a way that the risk of transmission is very low? And which activities, like mass gatherings, may be, in a certain sense, more optional? And so until you're widely vaccinated, those may not come back at all. Because until we get almost everybody vaccinated globally, we still won't be fully back to normal. And that actual decision of, okay, let's go and give this vaccine to the entire world. But the ultimate solution, the only thing that really lets us go back completely to normal and feel good about sitting in a stadium with lots of other people, is to create a vaccine and not just take care of our country, but take that vaccine out to the global population. We'll have a lot of unusual measures until we get the world vaccinated. 7 billion people, that's a tall order, but it is where we need to get to.
Gates was talking about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and how they're tackling COVID-19. Now, one of his answers was about people safely returning to work. He wrote that a system of, quote, digital certificates could be used to show if you've already been tested or eventually vaccinated.
This technology will help to identify who has been vaccinated or not. Bill Gates has said that life will not return to normal until 7 billion people are vaccinated and have a digital certificate proving they have been vaccinated. In other words, you will not be able to return to work without this mark and therefore will not be able to buy or sell.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So friend, as we've read, we see that at the end of time, according to the Bible, there will be a system that will seek to enforce worship and enforce systems in the world that will monitor people's economic status and that will be able to stop people from buying and selling. Friend, as you can see, all these systems are in place. The only thing that is remaining is to enforce worship, and this is not afar off. I did a video about Sunday laws that were being requested by governors and politicians. You can look at it. I'll put the link in the description below. Friends, the key to understanding what the mark of the beast is all about is found in the book of Revelation chapter 13. And this is all about worship. Don't be deceived by all these other winds of doctrines, that it's about a chip and about so many other things that are being talked about in the world. This is about worship. No government has a right to enforce worship. Even God cannot enforce worship. Worship and religious liberty should be from the sole choice of a person, not under enforcement. So friend, look out for these laws that are being passed secretly in most legislative assemblies of this world. We are nearing the end of all things, and Christ's second coming is at hand. May we be ready, lest we be taken unawares.